Right. So what did you find most challenging about the move?
Well, moving from a state that was in the Midwest to a state in the South, first of all, I went to a really big public school when I lived in Ohio, and it was like just completely different than the school that I went to when I moved to Georgia. When I moved to Georgia, I went to a really small private Baptist school, Eagles Landing Christian Academy, and it was just really different. People had their cliques. Like moving in the middle of high school going into junior year is just a time when like you already have all of your friends and it's really hard kind of starting over, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think the thing that really helped me the most was playing on a volleyball team, because it gave me that kind of like security, and it gave me a team, almost a sisterhood to kind of like balance on. So that really helps me with my move.
Right. Well, you mentioned the volleyball team. Was there someone on that team, or maybe even a certain coach that you remember helping you through the challenge of moving?
Well, when I moved to Georgia, the volleyball coach at Elka, the high school that I went to, actually contacted me when I was living in Ohio and was like trying to get me to come to Georgia, not this University of Georgia, but the state of Georgia, to come and play. And his name's Jim Barlow, so he helped me a lot. And yeah, so that was in high school, and then I had, in volleyball, you play club volleyball, so it goes year-round. High school's during the fall, and then club ball goes the rest of the year, and I made two friends who I actually have been playing with since then. I play with them now at Georgia, and we actually live together, and we could have never imagined that we were going to live together growing up. But Kaylee Kehoe and Gabby Smiley, so those two I played with when I first moved here, and they've kind of been my friends and my backbone here ever since, so they
wow,
helped.
That's
yeah.
really awesome. So how long has volleyball been a big part of your life?
Well, volleyball has been in my life as long as I can remember. I started playing in the third grade when I started playing in the third grade in like kind of fun like youth leagues, and then I started playing competitive when I was 12 years old. So it's been about 10 years since I've been playing volleyball, and I've always been known as like Lauren the volleyball girl, because now that I think back to it, in high school, when you play a competitive sport like that year-round, you don't really have a chance to go to like homecoming or prom or like really hang out with your friends on the weekends, because you're always training or traveling for volleyball. And but it's brought me all the way through college, so I'm pretty grateful that it has been such a big part of my life for this long.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned your friends and who you played volleyball with, so tell me more about your family.
Yeah, my family, my parents and both of my brothers, we all actually live in Georgia now. We all moved from Ohio. My oldest brother played football, and he went to Troy in Alabama and played football there as a tight end. And my younger brother, Billy, plays at Georgia State in Atlanta as a tight end right now. And my dad played football at West Virginia, so they've all played football. And my mom is also really athletic. She gets upset whenever I say she's not an athlete. So my mom was really athletic and played sports growing up. But so we're all in Georgia now, and yeah, so my older brother is actually done with football now. He's an accountant working in Atlanta, and my younger brother is still playing football. So.
And obviously moving such a great distance, family is a huge support system for you. So how has your family, beyond just moving, since you've been here, or your entire life, obviously they've been around your entire life, how have they helped you through challenges, beyond even volleyball, school, anything like that?
Yeah, my family, we're all really, really close. And the only unfortunate thing about the fact that we all play sports was that my brothers and I have always had the same season. So whenever we're in season from whatever it is, August until December, like we barely talk to each other and we barely see each other, at least as long as we had been playing our sports. But now that my oldest brother's done playing football and I'm done playing volleyball in the fall, we're able to support each other a lot more. Like I'll go up to Atlanta and visit with my older brother, or just this past weekend I actually missed the Georgia-Alabama game so I could go watch my little brother play with my older brother, which is a really big deal to me. And actually, more specifically, this past summer, we all grew really close because one of my close family members passed away, and something that I would have never imagined happen. So it's kind of like small moments like that, or like big life-changing experiences like that, kind of brought us all together and made us realize that, okay, the reason why we're all here together is so we can spend time together. And which is another reason why I'm really happy that we all ended up in Georgia, and that like we didn't all kind of go far away to college essentially, and that we all ended up here. So I mean, family is a really, really big part of my life, and anybody that knows me knows that my dad and my mom are my best friends. Like anytime anything happens in my life, like I'm gonna call my dad and tell him about it, or like anything that happens with volleyball or school, or if I'm just walking on the way to class. If you see me with my headphones in, I'm usually not listening to music. I'm usually talking to my parents or my brothers. So yeah, they're a very big part of my life.
Well, you mentioned the big moment this summer and why your family came close together with the passing of a relative. How did that affect your family, and how also did you and your family come together and get through that challenge that is so unexpected?
Yeah, well, to give you a little bit of background, my uncle Joe, he was actually the part of the family that they moved here before we moved to Georgia. So they moved here, I think, like 4 or 5 years before we moved to Georgia, and my uncle was my dad's best friend, and that's why we ended up moving here, because they're inseparable and they like couldn't be separated whatsoever. So we moved to Georgia, and this past summer he was diagnosed with stomach cancer, which is extremely hard and nobody saw it coming. So he actually went through the surgery, got his cancer removed and everything, and he was in post-op, and I was going to visit him on July 4th because he was going to come out of the hospital on July 5th, and I'm trying to think, I'm like thinking back to the day, because you know when something like this happens, you always can remember exactly where you are and exactly what was happening. So I was running on the treadmill in our apartment complex, and my mom called me and said, you know, like, don't come up anymore. The worst situation that happened could have happened, and your uncle passed away. And so that was really, really hard, and because I've never had a serious loss in my family before, and up until that moment I was always kind of saying like, wow, Dad, like, we're really fortunate. There's nothing really I can think of that has ever been really challenging for me, or, you know, life's been good so far. So this happened, and of course at first when you lose somebody that's that close to you and your family, like, it's a tragedy. Like, everything is just really, really bad, and but then after you get a chance to kind of like look back at it and realize like, okay, like, what is the purpose of this? Like, why did this happen? And of course you want to search and be like, okay, like, why is this happening? But it turned out to kind of be a positive for our family, you know, like in a different sense of where my uncle was like the greatest guy ever, and I honestly didn't even know how great he was until like we had a memorial service at our church here in Georgia, and the whole church was packed out like as if it was a Christmas service or something. Like, one story that I know about him is that he was a head football coach at his high school where he worked, Eagles Landing High School, yeah. So he had a lot of opportunity to kind of like change people's lives there, and all the young kids that he was working with. And so basically after a home football game, if there were random kids at the high school sitting around and they didn't have rides home, he would wait there until even like midnight sometimes and wait for them to get picked up, and if they didn't get picked up, he would drive them home and like bring them to their house. So he was just, basically, to wrap that up, he was this amazing man who had changed and touched so many lives, and kind of like opened up everybody's eyes in our family to want to be more like him. And so it's brought us together in a sense of, okay, we all need to kind of cope with each other and help each other out and have each other's back, but also in a sense where like we have grown so much stronger in our faith since like the passing of my uncle, which is crazy to think that like one situation could do that to your family, but it has, and you can see it. Everybody in our family, even from my family that lives in Ohio, all the Teknipps that live in Ohio, to here, we have like this huge family group text going on of like 30 plus people, and we're always like, how's everybody like doing today or whatever. And it's really great because I hadn't talked to some of my cousins or uncles and aunts in like ages, but this kind of thing like brought us all together. And we even have these wristbands that say like Teknipp strong, so anytime I like hashtag Teknipp strong, it's kind of in mind of like my uncle and like how great he was. And so he's a really big influence on my life right now since all of this stuff has happened. But bringing our family together, it's been like one of the biggest events that we've ever, you know, dealt with. So yeah, we're grateful for his life.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's an incredible story, and that bracelet's really cute.
Yeah,
I really like that. But we're talking about family, so just an interesting question to like get to know your family through you. Your immediate family, what's one word you would describe each of them with your brothers and your mom and dad?
Okay, some of them may be phrases. I'm trying to think because one word's difficult.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start with my older brother. I want to give him the word determined because he's an accountant, so it takes a specific type of person to be an accountant, and I don't know much about his personal life, but I know that he is very structured, like with everything he does, because he knows what it takes to get something done, and he's going to do anything in order to get that done. Like, he was studying for his CPA, so his certification in accounting, and I didn't talk to him for 6 months at a time because he was literally studying from like the sun came up until the sun went down, and he ended up getting it and passing. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so he's definitely
really cool.
determined. My younger brother, I'm gonna just call him like boy genius or something because he is so smart, and it makes me feel like I'm the like not as smart one in the family because both of my brothers have accomplished so much in school. My younger brother is he's getting his major in biology, and then he's going to go to ophthalmology school to be an ophthalmologist, I think is the right word. Yeah. Not the eye surgeon, but the eye doctor. So, and he's doing this all while playing football and like training basically 24/7. And then for my mom, I'll say strong, and kind of ironically because obviously like my brothers and I and my dad are all probably physically stronger than her, but she is so mentally strong that it blows my mind because I never hear her talk about if she's nervous about something because she just got a new job, and I was like asking her, I'm like, Mom, are you nervous? Like, this is new, all new people and everything. She's like, no, I'm fine. I've prepared my whole life. Like, I know what I'm doing because she's a nurse and she's getting back into nursing. And so she just blows my mind when she talks about the things she does because I never hear her slip up and say, oh my gosh, I'm so scared, or like, I'm worried about this, because she's never worried. And then my dad, he's just the man, like nothing else besides the man. Everybody knows that he's my best friend, and I'm probably like a daddy's girl more than anything, because he's kind of like shaped me into the person I am growing up. But yeah, my dad's the man. I think my favorite thing about him is that he tells me, he's like, yeah, sure, like, you transition from being a child to a teenager into adulthood, but you don't necessarily have to be an adult. He's like, you can be a kid your whole life if you want to, if you just, like, take care of the things you need to take care of. And that's the epitome of who he is. He's just, like, a big kid, and it's awesome. So anybody who knows him loves him.
I like that. I think I'm going to start using that.
Yeah, I know.
Because as I'm getting older, I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, you can be mature, but you don't have to be, like, a stickler.
That's awesome. Well, now I feel like we're all going to know your favorite sentence words, but those are great words to choose.
Thanks.
But now that we've gotten to see how it was early in your life and through your childhood, I want to get into your accomplishments and, of course, volleyball. So you got a full ride scholarship, essentially to 2 schools. So can you talk a little about the first one and the first school and your experience?
Yeah, my freshman year, I got recruited to go to, I had a few options of school. I had offers from University of Michigan, Ohio State, and San Diego, and I was choosing between those 3, and it came down to Ohio State and Michigan, and it's kind of ironic because I was an Ohio girl, and normally, like, Ohio State should be the #1 thing on my mind, but I ended up going to Michigan my first year. So I chose the University of Michigan, and I lasted all the way through my freshman year, and then I decided to transfer, and it was nothing against Michigan or the people there. Like, I had a ton of fun, and I think that the only thing I would change about my freshman year specifically is that I would have been a little bit more open-minded to meeting other people and, like, experiencing more things. You know, like, it's a freshman thing. I feel like people are kind of in their own shell, and I am a pretty shy person to begin with. Like, if I don't know you very well, I normally wouldn't talk unless I'm supposed to, like, So, yeah, Michigan was my first choice, and then after my first year, I transferred to Georgia. So, yeah, then I transferred to Georgia, and it was one of those situations where, you know, people always say, don't go back home, like, you're not supposed to go back home, you're supposed to kind of tough it out and be away from your family, but I don't think that's the most important thing about going away and growing up necessarily around that age. So I came back home with the intentions of being closer to my family. Like I said, I'm a really big family person, and so I think my biggest thought about that was, okay, my parents had paid for me all the way up until this point of college, like to do club volleyball, travel volleyball, like pay for high school and everything else, my training, and I think they deserve to see like a more than just a couple games a year, because if I was playing at Michigan, they wouldn't have been able to come to a lot of my games.
Right.
So when I transferred to Georgia, I didn't even look anywhere else. I just automatically knew I was going to come to Georgia, and I chose Georgia also because, like I mentioned earlier, Kaylee Kehoe and Gabby Smiley had both already been playing here. Kaylee transferred here too, so we all kind of came back home, because I think that we all have a similar value of like our family, because, you know, like your family is supposed to be your #1, and that was pretty much my reason just to come back, so they could be able to come and see me play, and they never missed a game, so yeah, between the two of them, so.
That's really nice to always have them at games.
Yeah, it was amazing.
The website has a really creative name, so can you tell us how you came up with Saturated Fit?
Yeah, Saturated Fit, people always mistake it for saturated fat, which isn't a mistake actually at all, because the reason why I did come up with Saturated Fit was because it sounds so much like saturated fat, and I eat a really unconventional way. A lot of people who are close to me know how I eat, and I eat, like, majority of my caloric intake is from fat. So I eat bacon, steak, like ribeye steak, butter, eggs, just a ton of like fatty foods, which is usually something that people would avoid, and a lot of coconut oil, olive oil. So Saturated Fit is meant to sound like saturated fat. I eat probably about 80% fat in my diet because I use fat for energy instead of carbs for energy, which my nutritionist here at Georgia wouldn't agree with, but they hadn't agreed with it for a long time. And then the fit is for the fitness. So I kind of combine the two words. Well, not me alone. My dad helped me come up with Saturated Fit, because it would sound weird if it was like fat girl fitness, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
There are a couple of like mess ups before we came up with Saturated Fit, but that's essentially how I came up with saturatedfit.com instead of anything else. So I thought it was a little bit creative with how I eat, because I eat a lot of saturated fat, so it kind of goes hand in hand with it.
That was the first thing I noticed. When
Such
I was like on there, I was like, wow, that's a really creative name.
Yeah,
I really like that. So with Saturated Fit, what is your vision for this website in 5 to 10 years?
I definitely want to keep building it up and kind of increasing my following as much as possible. And right now, the things that I've been able to do with it so far is consulting people. I've been getting emails from girls saying, you know, I tore my ACL 6 months ago and I got really out of shape. Like, give me a couple tips that I can do to kind of help myself kickstart back into being healthy. So I just kind of shoot them a couple of things that I would do in that situation. I'm not claiming any expertise, but you know, like, personal experience is what everybody wants to hear. And so I always get emails like that from girls. I get it from people as old as 35, 40 years old, and I just kind of give them information. They're like, wow, I really love it, like, thank you so much. And that's honestly like what I want to do with the website, is be able to consult people through it, kind of just give out health tips and workout regimens, and come up with like workout of the day or something like that. Really similar to, if anybody knows, like toneitup.com is another thing that I kind of base off of, or what I go off of, or like Top Sugar Fitness is another one. But I really want to kind of brand Saturated Fit and turn it into as many things as I possibly can, honestly. Like, it could be clothing, workout equipment, supplements, food, you know, like, pretty much my plan was to put all of my passions into one thing. So like, any experience I get from beach volleyball working out, like, I want to be like, okay, well, if there's a beach volleyball workout, who wants to try it, like, give it a shot, this is what I do, kind of thing. So in 5 to 10 years, I do want Saturated Fit to be a really big part of my career, because I am planning on I'm in the process of getting certified to be a personal trainer, so just trying to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, with Saturated Fit being kind of the base of it all.
Hypothetically speaking, 65 years from now, someone is writing a speech, a dialogue about you. What would you want them to conclude that with, say about you?
Actually, going back earlier to the story and experience from my uncle passing away this past summer, it's forced me to kind of think about this a lot, and I've talked with my dad about this a lot, and basically what I've learned, that I want the most important thing for people to talk about me when I'm gone, or whatever else is going on in my life at that time, is that I somehow positively impacted their lives, you know, because we're honestly only here. I think the most important thing is to impact other people's lives, and I've learned that through my uncle, because after seeing how many lives he impacted, and nobody knew how many lives he impacted until he was gone. And I think that the whole point of it being so surprising is that he was so humble. And I think that the main thing that I want people to know about me is that I was humble with, you know, everything I did, but that my main concern about my life was just to help other people. And that sounds kind of pageanty, but but it's so true, that when you realize, you know, like, how important life is and how fragile it can be, like, all the most important thing to you is probably impacting other people's lives in a positive way. And that kind of all ties together with everything that I do want to do with my life, so I'm hoping that I will eventually get to that point where somebody can say that about me.
Well, I definitely agree. I think one day someone will write something about you and say that you definitely impacted a lot of lives just from speaking with you. Thank you so much for sitting with me, Lauren, and explaining your story to the Wishes, and for letting me get to know you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No, thank you so much.